The Wikipedia of hiring. Restoring the human network, job markets lost. What does a crowdsourced whispered network for a global job market look like? Hi, my name is Sarah Trumbull. I'm the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, the first anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. There's a level of go-to-market awareness as well as public service for, I say usually the gaslighting, but we're not talking about gaslighting here. We're talking about a vision for the future. So, um, this is the long part of my series where I'm talking about the vision for the job applicant perspective. The data layer is one thing, and we'll talk about gamifying the data later, like how to design a market with trustworthy data layer. But the presentation layer can be different for everybody, and I meant the last several blogs in this series to talk about the future, where I see the job market going and how it can work instead of the way it's working right now, and use metaphors that are not really metaphors. They're just examples of how to present the data that are very accessible to make it more clear, because I am inspired by a speech by Zoran Mandani, who pointed out that sometimes it's not really about people being villains. It's about them being like a lack of imagination, almost like they haven't really considered it. And I mean to help people consider it visually, not just talk about what's going wrong, but what's going right. So anyway, I'm going to start from the beginning, see what you think, and we'll go from there. The Lost Whisper Network. Think about how people used to find jobs before the internet. Your uncle knew someone at the factory. Your neighbor's daughter worked at the bank and told you which manager was fair. The local dino regulars would share which companies were hiring and which ones to avoid. The church bulletin board had handwritten notes about opportunities. This wasn't just networking, it was a living information ecosystem where knowledge flowed through trusted channels. Warnings were specific and timely. Don't apply to the night shift. The supervisor's terrible. Advice was tailored to your situation. With your back injury, avoid warehouse B. Reputation was local, immediate, and community enforced. When hiring moved online, we did not just lose personal connections, we lost the entire information architecture that made local job markets functional. The internet promised to connect us all. Instead, it isolated us, turning us into lonely, anonymous numbers where everyone guards information as competitive advantage. Information siloing, I call it. But what if we could use the internet to rebuild those human networks at scale? What if instead of replacing whispers with algorithms, we amplified whispers across demographics, industries, and regions? Who this is for? Job seekers understand why applying to hundreds of postings often fails and learn to prioritize processes that respect their time. Employers and hiring managers see why efficiency alone does not guarantee better outcomes and how trust can improve candidate engagement. Product designers and platform builders designing labor market tools, marketplaces, or recruitment platforms with asymmetric power dynamics. Researchers and analysts exploring labor economics, behavioral systems, or market dynamics where human attention and trust are central. Curious minds and systemic design. Anyone interested in making markets work with humans, not just metrics. Reviewing where we were. The job applicant perspective is currently at MVP status, featuring our first data presentation, the anonymous Yelp layer of the online job market. Recent blog posts have outlined our vision for how this platform will evolve with time and funding. The aim is not to define the future, many possibilities exist, but to spark it. The Yelp layer is our foundation, a practical, fast access tool for actionable insights. From here, we've developed two additional ways to experience the data. First, the trust stock market. This layer frames job opportunities like investments, complete with tickers, tracking their trustworthiness over time. It's designed for math-oriented and investor-minded thinkers who want to see the market in quantitative terms. Second, the Google Maps layer. For visual spatial thinkers, we conceptualize the job market as a network of roads guiding job seekers towards employment. This layer allows participants to share reliable directional data about the system's functionality, turning collective experience into navigable insight. Layer 3, the one I'm talking about now. Presentation space 3. Hiring Wikipedia. Finally, for verbal and narrative thinkers, this layer captures story-driven insights. It's for those who understand the market not as geography or numbers, but as a living tapestry of experiences. This layer provides a space for sense making that complements the other two, creating a richer collective understanding of the online hiring ecosystem. Together, these layers offer multiple entry points into the same underlying truth. The online labor market is a complex system, and meaningful data, shared, understood, and interpreted, can restore trust, clarity, and efficiency. What we lost: the 3 layers of local knowledge. First, demographic-specific intelligence. Disabled workers used to know which hiring processes usually accommodated single parents. Single parents knew which companies it was safe to ask about for flexibility in the interview and which it wasn't. Minority communities shared which listings were real and which were bunk. This wasn't formal DEI, it was lived experience, passed person to person. Online job boards erased these distinctions, pretending one size fits all when it never did. It never did. It's just not how it works. And now, even having a friend at the company does not help. The hiring process has been abstracted away from the humans who work there. HR moved 2 states away. Your friend can't tell you which ATS the company uses, how its filters are configured, or whether educator on your resume will be recognized as learning and development. Even the HR can't. They don't know what the lexical sets are because they're not involved. Like a lot of times, not all the time, but many times they don't know. They don't have access to that info because they don't ask about the experience of the workforce using that in that sort of way. Bias is not always about people trying to exclude you. More often, it's about people failing to consider you and building systems that encode that failure at scale. Yeah. Does the system understand that language carries history, that certain words, phrasing, and credential patterns are statistically associated with race and gender? Does it account for the fact that simply removing woman or black from a resume does almost nothing to address the deeper patterns baked into how we describe work? Who knows? None of us know what this is. Nobody's saying anything. Amazon scrapped their own ATS when they discovered it was systematically downgrading women. Most companies never look. Hiring discrimination is already one of the hardest forms of discrimination to prove. These systems make it harder, not by being malicious, but by being unauditable. Period. We are not claiming bias exists. We are pointing out what happened in ageism, only ageism, with one company, Workday, over a 5-year period when no one was checking. 1.1 billion resumes shredded. 1.1 billion American dreams and hopes shredded. Just a resume, like, this marketplace is not a joke. It's not buying tennis shoes. It's your identity and your access to the future, your access to paying rent. This is wildly erroneous behavior, whether you're talking about civically, socially, or economically, or psychologically. This is wildly, like, off the charts, like, erroneous for a society to engage in order to stay safe and sane and civically stable. So, what should we expect from a system that mediates access to survival for hundreds of billions of people with no federal oversight, white labeled so applicants can't track which part of the process is rejecting them, and controlled by companies that profit the longer their unpaid users do not find work? 2, insider process knowledge in small communities. People knew which hiring managers valued cover letters, which applications got fast-tracked, which interview questions always came up, which roles were already spoken for. This wasn't cheating, it was efficiency, learning the actual rules of engagement rather than guessing. Reputation without reviews. Before Glassdoor, reputation traveled through. My cousin worked there for 3 months and quit. They promoted from within last year. They're good to their people when times are tough. This was nuanced contextual reputation, not a star rating, but a story with characters, plot, and a moral. Wikipedia versus Yelp. Why structure matters. The beginning of the job applicant perspective is with Yelp style user review of job ads. Individual disconnected opinions, star ratings that give a general vibe, focus on what went wrong in order to start crossing off job market scammers. Honest to goodness, if you start with just eliminating the identity theft, you're already saved hundreds of millions of dollars. If you keep going, with eliminating the evergreen roles and the actual, not identity theft, but just massive waste of time where, you know, um, Indeed will replicate the same job 20 times for 20 different areas, but they could really just take one job seeker resume and plop it all through. Like, there's another couple hundred million, saved. Like, you don't need to even do anything dramatic beyond that at first. But save star there. Star ratings give down. Focus on what went wrong. One of the directions, though, I envision it to go long term is a hiring Wikipedia. Collaborative, evolving knowledge, structured by topic and relevance, focused on factual patterns, not individual satisfaction. Self-correcting through community. Example, Yelp approach. Job ad for company X on Y recruiter site, ghosted, 1 star. Wikipedia approach. Company X's hiring history over the years. Comparing applying for jobs from X, Y, or Z method. Project manager hiring process over the last 3 years. What is an ATS and what are your rights? Greenhouse's latest update and fix. Disabled people's experience applying at X company. One gives us insight right now, but the other is a library of growing actionable intelligence. TJAP, the Wikipedia of hiring, 4 layers. Layer 1, hiring tech literacy. The training HR gets, but applicants do not. Users evaluating and explaining the latest from Greenhouse, Workday, Lever, ICMS, Taleo, what they've noticed, what's changed, and which companies use what. Workday just updated their parsing. Here's what's different. I tested this resume format on Greenhouse, and here's what happened. These 47 companies all use the same ATS, so what works for one works for all. A plumber should not have to become a hiring tech expert to get evaluated on their skills at working for a plumbing company. But right now, they do. This layer gives them the training that does not exist anywhere else. HR tech gets these trainings, but the people that are actually, using it to eat don't, Over time, the community builds what doesn't exist anywhere else. FAQs, workarounds, even phone numbers that actually reach someone. Layer 2, vendor updates, accountability. The other side of this conversation. Vendors can post here too. Greenhouse fixes an accessibility issue. Post it. Let the community verify. Get credit. Workday announces a new bias audit. Share it here. Let users respond. Because the goal is not just to burn bad actors. It's to become the place where good actors earn goodwill with the stakeholders who drive their value. Become the place where good actors earn goodwill with the stakeholders who drive their value. Job seeker user experience is directly how much employers are paying in monthly subscriptions. It just is. So job seekers drive the monthly subscriptions. They just do. They drive the value for these vendors. If the vendors want to earn good reviews, they need to demonstrate it. This is a two-way channel. Vendors who engage honestly get recognized. Vendors who don't get documented. We're not saying employers can choose. They can choose whoever they want. They're just going to be documented. That's all. If people live with the accountability, market with accountability, amazing. It's amazing. Demographic navigation. Advice organized by who you are and where you're trying to go. Rural Kid's Guide to Applying at Google, New York City. Single Mom's Guide to Navigating Company X. Veteran's Guide to Translating Military Experience for Corporate Roles. Disabled Applicant's Guide to Disclosure Timing. The beauty is most people carry more than one label. A single mom who's also rural and also a veteran. A disabled applicant who's also a career switcher and also first gen. Having all groups talking in the same place with filters you can flip means you can see single moms and rural and veterans, disabled and career switchers over 50. Whatever combination matches you. Different perspectives, layered, not siloed, intersectional by design. Layer 4, demographic protection. This is a discrimination warning system. This is different from navigation advice. This is about pattern recognition for harm, because hiring process is not working process. I cannot overstress this. A hiring process is not even remotely a working process anymore. Enjoying the workplace vibe no longer correlates with your ability to get your resume in the door. Not even remotely connected. Used to be I could walk into a shop, like a coffee shop, hear someone say, "Hey, sweetie, can you get me some coffee?" Like, do like a good old boys vibe, and be like, I don't want to work there. Now, there's no correlation between the vibe you see there and what your hiring process is going to be like. You have no idea. Rampant lack of knowledge. Just information asymmetry off the charts. Of course it doesn't work, because casinos make terribly inefficient hiring processes. That's what they do. Profitable ones, though. Enjoying the workplace vibe. You don't know what your resume means to algorithms that no one understands, and the risk is not evenly distributed. Not when we have a history like we do. That's not how it works. That's not how linguistics works at all. At all. It doesn't know. It's not how it works at all. Some demographics face risks, others don't. This layer lets people flag patterns. 3 Black applicants reported the same issue. Applying at company X. Warn each other, do not disclose disability until after stage Y. Aggregate what individuals cannot see alone. One person's bad experience looks like bad luck. 10 people's bad experiences look like a pattern. 100 looks like evidence. It's true. This layer makes the invisible visible, not by accusing, but by observing and aggregating. Honestly, because I've said this before, people talk about verified reviews. No, that's not how it works at all. You don't verify reviews because you're looking at it the wrong way. You're looking at it a top-down way. Who does the verification, Who does it? And who checks on them to make sure they're not? You can verify in a little bit, kind of, but we're not doing verified as if they're automatically doubtable in that way. That's not how you do it. You watch the pattern. You watch the way the pattern moves over time with the company, and you see how it coalesces. We're starting from score 0. So we're trying to get 2% correct, 4%, 10% correct at first, and we're moving over time. The way the system is designed is to increase trustworthiness over time. You do not need institutional authority to find verification. It's automatically, for the record, ridiculous, because the assumption that trust comes from power is never really true. It's performance comes from power. Trust comes from vulnerability. By and large, like, patriarchy is a level of a learning disability, to be honest. It just is, because you're automatically doubting the person vulnerable from you because you're trying to be connected to power. So you couldn't possibly, I feel like for me, this is where we can't trust women. We can't trust children who report about abuse. Yeah, you can. You just can't learn from them. And the reason because you can't learn from them, you can't trust them. So, and then bing, bang, boom, oh, women aren't smart. Or I don't know. It's just silly. So what I mean to say is, like, the higher up you get in the hierarchy, the more insulated they are from reality. They just are. And like, they, instead of just listening to the whole of the world, they're only listening to people who are dudes. And then they're only listening to people who are white dudes. And then they're only listening to people who are white dudes with Rolexes. And they're only listening to people who are white dudes with Rolexes and PhDs. And the crew of people that you're listening to is a lot smaller. And those people are also a lot more insulated from the whole rest of the world too. They're just not, they don't have access to real data anymore, So anyway, I mean to say that you don't need to top-down verification. You can watch the pattern of how it engages. That's what we're doing. And anyway, for the record, with the evergreen roles, the acre loss, the vast error in judgment, the institutions are not the people we're going to be trusting with data. No, I don't think so. But that's okay. I can do that. I went on a rant. I apologize. Why this solves problems other platforms can't. Number one, it honors specificity. Generic advice fails specific people. Generic advice fails specific people. Network more does not help an autistic applicant who struggles with social cues. Just apply does not help a refugee whose credentials aren't recognized. The Whisper Network says, find your people, learn from their experiences, share your own, their specific experiences. Number two, it democratizes insider knowledge. Right now, insider knowledge flows through elite university networks, privileged family connections, expensive career coaches. The Whisper Network makes this knowledge accessible, searchable, and free, not as charity, but as mutual aid system. It creates accountability through transparency. When patterns become visible, companies cannot hide behind a few bad apples. Systemic issues become undeniable. Improvement becomes measurable. Yeah, I think it's great. Like Wikipedia, Wikipedia. Check the research. What happens when markets lose formal trust infrastructure? This essay builds on a well-documented body of research across labor economics, market design, sociology, and information systems. While hiring platforms are often discussed as a unique problem, the underlying failure mode, loss of informal trust networks replaced by low signal scale systems, is not novel. So in general, I move from first principles, but I do try to find other researchers, academics, people in the past that have noticed or observed similar or the same things to try to bolster my research with, bolster my first principles with others that are vetting what I'm doing. But I got Granovetter in there, the strength of weak ties. I thought that was a great one. Strength of weak ties is really, that was good stuff. Excuse me. Agerloff's in there. I always have him in there because it's good stuff. Information asymmetry. It's a problem. Resnick, about trust among strangers, platforms without scale that without trust produce noise, not liquidity. There's a guy named Einev on peer-to-peer markets show that scale increases participation but not welfare when quality filters are absent. I did not realize he existed. I was like, oh, that's good stuff. Anyway, collective intelligence outperforms individual reviews from, I cannot say his name right, but Shuresky, Wisdom of Crowds. That was the one. Anyway, the beautiful constrained, imperfect but better. This is not about creating a perfect information system. It's about creating a better one than what exists now. Right now, the job applicant perspective is at MVP level. It is the Yelp version of itself, neither the trust stock market, nor the Google Maps, nor the Wikipedia. And yet, this is already better than what job seekers had before. The current system is zero information for most applicants. It's wildly information asymmetry, just Akerlof off the charts. The current system is zero information for most applicants. A Whisper network is all of its formats will be sometimes outdated, occasionally biased, and not comprehensive, but still infinitely better than silence. Infinitely better. It's the difference between now I have no idea what to expect. Whisper networks, 3 people with my background reported this process took 6 weeks and included a take-home test. Even if one of those reports is wrong, you'll be better informed than you were before. Guaranteed in the beginning it will be, but the way the trust layers are structured, it will get better over time. And I mentioned it before, but I will talk about that in 2 more articles from now. I'm talking about how you design an online marketplace with trust as the constraining factor. It was really fun. I like puzzles. It's fun. Conclusion, rebuilding the village. We cannot return to small town hiring, but we can use technology to recreate the village's information sharing at global scale. This is not about replacing professional networks with something less professional. It's about recognizing that the most valuable hiring knowledge has always flowed through informal channels, through whispers, through shared experience, through community. TJAP's Wikipedia Whisper Network also vision is simple, giving that knowledge a home, giving it a home, structure it so that it's useful, protect it so it's honest, and distribute it so everyone, not just the well-connected, can benefit. Because in the end, the best map of a job market isn't drawn by experts. It's co-created by everyone traveling through it, sharing warnings about potholes, updates on new routes, and reassurance that the destination is worth the journey. When we share what we know, we don't just help each other find jobs, we rebuild the trust infrastructure that makes markets work for humans and societies work for humans. I'm just saying it's true. Yeah, so that's it. That's the sell. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a brilliant idea. Just for the record. Of course I'm biased, but I don't know if you've used this online job market, but it's absolutely atrocious. Yeah, it's a historical, it's economic holocaust out there. And it's been that way for about a decade plus. From my experience, and I'm a white girl with a master's degree. So it's not good. I would call it Bonhoeffer's recipe for a K-shaped economy. Legit though. Nevertheless, that is where we're at for now. And I will talk next week about how modern society allows you to have a single data layer with 4 presentation layers, kind of like a cathedral glass with different stained glass window. And then the week after that, on the trust architecture, like how you design the constraints with that. Try to demonstrate what I'm doing. But yeah, that's the plan. And I hope you enjoyed. Please like, follow, share, repost, or engage. I'd love to chat about it. I am obviously passionate about my stuff. So, please feel free to chat about it. And that's where we're at. So, cool beans. Have a good one. Stay safe out there. Stay sane and be kind to each other. Like, yeah, no, that's, I always look for people being kind anymore. And the world made the internet. The internet made the world into a snowstorm. You don't want to call the corporate office. You want to talk to people on the roads, That's the idea. Right?